Hi, it's Amanda Pratt, licensed clinical social worker, licensed master social worker in Florida and Michigan. I'm the chronic illness therapist, and today I'm bringing you a new video in my coping skill building series. And today we're going to be talking about denial. So, what is denial? And is denial a coping skill that's always bad, or can it sometimes be helpful? Today I'm going to be sharing with you what denial is exactly, and also that it can be helpful and harmful. So denial is a type of emotion-focused coping, and what this is it's a type of way that we mentally disengage when we're faced with a stressor. So what happens with denial is when we refuse to believe that a stressor exists or that it's real, or we try to pretend that it never happened, right? It's often utilized out of a sense of helplessness in our lives, or maybe we have a lack of a perceived ability to control the stressor, right? If we don't have control over something or what happens, and or we feel helpless as a result of that stressful event, then we may be put into a state of denial as a means of coping with that. So denial is actually something that research tells us is associated with depression and, if you have a chronic illness, poor health outcomes. So we don't want to sit with denial for very long if we have to. If we can avoid it altogether, that's great. I think that's the ideal. But denial does have some benefits. And so I think it's important to think about how denial can help us. So there is a reason that denial is one of the stages of grief, right? It is a necessary sometimes thing that we experience emotionally when we're dealing with some really, really tough stressors. Death and loss, trauma, for example, there are things that reasonably, where denial can come in and actually help us. And so how denial can help us is that it actually gives us time to adjust to an emotionally distressing situation. Okay, it can be kind of like a force field around us, if you will, when we're faced with stress, to give us time to process what's happening and give us time to emotionally adjust and go, oh my gosh, like what is it I'm supposed to be experiencing, and how can I prepare myself to deal with these feelings that are really big and really difficult. The thing with denial is we just don't want to sit with it for too long. We don't want to get stuck there because it can cause some problems. Okay, so I think it's important to understand denial's purpose. When we're in denial, we aren't acknowledging the situation, we're not facing the facts about the problem, and we're downplaying the consequences of the issue. It can come up with anything that makes us feel vulnerable or threatens our sense of control, like illness, addiction, eating disorders, personal violence, financial problems, relationship conflicts, and it can be something that's happening to us or even something that's happening to someone else. I think that it's unhealthy when we refuse to face the facts, right? Eventually, the time's going to come when we have to. If we're in denial for a short period, that's okay. It gives us, again, that time to absorb shocking or distressing information so that it doesn't send us into a psychological or emotional tailspin. I think that it can be harmful when, say, we claim that we're not affected by it, right? We refuse to sit with the emotions or process the emotions that come with something difficult, right? We need to be able to process those and talk about them. So that's an unhealthy thing to do. If we get diagnosed with a chronic illness and we're in denial about the illness, we're obviously not going to be doing things we need to treat the illness, address it. We're not doing things to help it get better, which means that it's influencing the illness to probably get worse, which, depending on what the illness is, can really have some detrimental outcomes. I think that, if you have a friend or a family member that's suffering from addiction and you're in denial about that, you can be doing things that perpetuate or enable that behavior for them if you're in denial about it. If we are in denial that there's a problem at work, for example, and we don't do anything about it, then we might be missing days. We might be having things that come up at work because we're not dealing with the problem that can actually put us at jeopardy of losing our job or something like that. So as you can see, if it's temporary and it's something that we use to process what's going on, then that's okay and that can be normal. We just don't want to get stuck there and use it as a means of coping with stress, as a regular habitual reaction, okay? And then never actually get to the point where we problem solve and start dealing with things that come up in the emotions we're feeling. Denial is a tricky coping strategy. It can be helpful, but it can also be harmful, and we have to be very careful about it and also have a really good sense of self-awareness to know if that's where we're at, okay? So we can identify it. I hope this helps you, and this was another coping strategy in my coping skill building video series. So please, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and hit subscribe and hit the bell notification so the next time I release a coping skill video, you'll get notified. And also, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and you found it helpful. That tells YouTube to show it to more people so that they can find it helpful too. Thanks for joining me, and this is again Amanda Pratt, the chronic illness therapist, and I'll see you in the next video.